Hello and welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther, and today I'm going to talk about the 5 things I'm doing this month in November in the fall to prepare for winter as well as set up good conditions for next year's garden. So let's start off with number 1. Number 1 is to clear your beds. One thing to think about when clearing your beds is whether to leave some plants up for native species like spiders and beneficial insects to have a place to stay. So I tend to leave the flower beds alone unless they're really gross. I tend to amend beds that have a lot of weeds or have things that I don't, be hard to pull up in the spring if the ground is frozen. So you have your bed amended and you've taken out all of your garden stakes and other trellising. I don't take out the metal ones, but I do take out the plastic ones, and I'm gonna take these home and put them in my shed so that they are just out of the sun for the winter. But once you get these taken up, then you have a couple options to do with your bed. If your bed has a really low, especially like a raised bed, has a really low soil level now, well, you can replenish it ahead of the winter, especially if you're going to be planting garlic or bulbs or possibly even cover crops on it. You can amend the bed to just add some leaf grow or some other things to help raise those levels. You can also add leaves from your yard in there. I don't recommend mulching the leaves because there are native insects that need to overwinter in the leaves, but you can put a nice layer of leaves on top of the bed as well. Or you could even throw some mulch on top, like wood chips or something like that, also to cover the bed for the winter. One of those options is to plant cover crops. Now, a cover crop is something, as it sounds, that will grow either in the fall, and you turn it over in the fall or the spring or early summer. Basically, it's something you grow instead of something you're going to eat to help amend the soil in a certain way instead of using fertilizers, right? So in my case, I'm going to be growing mustard. This is True Leaf Market's Mighty Mustard Trifecta Power Blend. I grew this in one of my beds last year, and it definitely helped the soil be better. And this year, I am also going to be growing Hairy Vetch, which I was supposed to have started a few weeks ago, but I think we're going to have a few weeks of nice weather that's not freezing, so I think it'll still have time to get established. Now, the thing to realize with cover crops is, so this Hairy Vetch brings copious amounts of nitrogen into the soil, and it says here that it biodegrades quickly, and at the bloom stage, it contributes the most nitrogen. So in the spring, so how cover crops typically work from fall to spring is, and I've only done this one other year, but I've done a bit of research on it, is you'll plant it in the fall, and it'll get established, you'll see it sprout, it'll help reduce erosion in the winter, but it won't really take off until it starts getting warmer, until March or April. And then you'll have, I think this one's 60 days, so I'll have basically till June, May or June, to break it, to mix it into the soil, to turn it over. You don't want it to go to seed. It can go to flower, but you don't want it to go to seed. Otherwise, you'll have a real problem with these things. They can become weeds real easy. And then you'll either incorporate it into the soil or just lay it on top of it to break down. You won't be harvesting from it. Now, I need to amend this bed. You can see it's quite shallow. I need to add some leaf grow to it, after which I'm going to add the Hairy Vetch seeds. The instructions say to sow 1/2 inch deep, about 3 inches apart. With cover crops, I'm not as picky about being super careful about how many I put down in one spot. I just kind of sprinkle them as I go. Because we're not growing them for them to produce anything we're going to be eating. I've made a little trench here. It's about 1/2 inch deep. I'll push them in a little more. I got these seeds half off for end of year clearance at a garden center, so I'm even less concerned about not wasting them. Okay, so now I just need to water it in and let it do its thing. Another thing to do in November is plant your garlic for harvesting the next year. So here I have a garlic head that I got from the farmer's market, from a local farm that I knew grew it. Whether it was organic or not, I'm not sure, but they grew it and it doesn't have any special treatment to reduce sprouting. And then this is some, and I don't know what variety that is. They said it was one of two, and I can't even remember. It was something about Russian, something rather Russian red or something. I'm not sure. So that's okay. I don't actually need to know the variety all the time, but I do know that this is a German extra hardy seed garlic. And in my area, you need to grow hardneck garlic because this is an area where it gets cold and you have freezing winters still. So softneck garlic is for warmer regions. And all you need to do is to break apart the clove heads. It's going to make a mess on my bed, but I don't care. And you want to break them carefully because although you can plant them if the skins come off, you want to avoid that if you can. So you kind of want them to look like that. And you're going to plant them flat side down. All right, so I'm going to just mark out some spots for it. I'm just going to do this one head to start off with today. The larger the clove you plant, the bigger the garlic bulb will be. So the bigger ones use, and if you get a really tiny one, you can plant it if you want, but you can also just use it for eating. All right, let's see how many we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's a smaller one. Okay. 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 I got from this head. Here's some smaller ones, and I'm actually not going to plant these. I'm just going to take these home and eat them, use them in cooking, because they're not going to produce very big bulbs. But I spent, I think, $2.50 on this garlic bulb, whereas you pay a lot more when you get it from like a vendor. So if you want to save money and you don't care what variety you grow, but you want to know that it'll grow in your area, buy from a farmer's market. It'll totally work. Facing down. So when they say 2 inches deep, I think of like sort of this part, but sort of where this part is, where it sort of bends. I think of that as needing to be about 2 inches down. Yeah. I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule on that. So I probably go about 3 inches deep total, maybe 4, depending on how big the bulb is. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to plant these 2 here. I think they'll be fine. All right, and I also have some slow release fertilizer. We have some slow release fertilizer that I'm also going to put down. So what typically happens in the winter is in the first month, I'll see some shoots come up maybe at the end of this month or early December. They will survive the winter, and if it's a deep freeze, I can put leaf mulch over them or regular mulch over them. But last year I did an experiment where I grew these in soil without covering it with leaves, and they did fine. So I think they'll be fine. Now I need to cover them up and water them. Now the 5th item on the list is sort of something I probably should have had earlier on, but that is to go to the garden center and buy as much of the soil amendments, compost, and other things as you need for your garden for this year, as well as for the winter, as well as for the spring, that you can just leave out until you need it. It'll save you a lot of hassle in the spring. A lot of these bags can be frozen solid, and they're heavier because they're wet, and they're harder to transport. So if you can get these into your garden now, also prices go up in every year. So if you can buy them now, you're probably saving yourself a little bit of money. And although we're a couple months away from starting the winter sowing process, this is the perfect time to buy your potting mix, again, for the same reasons. It's harder to find in the winter, it's more expensive, and also it won't be frozen and heavier. So I usually buy about 3 bags of this Fox Farm Ocean Forest for my winter sowing ahead of time, just to save a little bit of stress. All right, that's it for this video. I'll see you next time.